Well, welcome everyone. I'm happy to see so many new clients have joined us today. We're excited to share with you tips for getting started in your Rentec Direct account. So before we dig in, I just have a few introductions to make. My name is Janelle, and I've got my teammate Catherine with me. So I'd like to give her a moment to say hello to everyone.
So thank you, Janelle, for letting me join you today. And I can see that you have my AKA up there, so hopefully I'll live up to that.
Well, Catherine and I have worked together here at Rentec for about 7 years, and she is nothing short of amazing. She could answer your questions with her eyes closed. So that's why she's here today, and she's going to be able to field your questions. Both Catherine and I were property managers in our past lives, and together with the whole Rentec team, we we really work hard to make sure you have the best experience possible in your Rentec Direct account. So before we dig in too far, I want to learn what type of Rentec client you are. I'm going to shoot you a quick question poll to your screen, and if you could answer it for us, it'll really make sure we use this information to best help you. So let me send that your way. All right, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Because Catherine and her support team are answering your questions every day, again, she's here today to field your questions that we might just not cover in the presentation. You're going to notice in your webinar screen that there is a Q&A button. So I'm going to end that first question that I asked so that you'll be able to see your screen again. So when you submit a question, again, Catherine's going to be answering it for us. And we're going to be following up after this webinar with answers to any questions that for some reason we don't get covered in our meeting. And we just want to make sure that you feel confident in using all your Rentec Direct tools. So you can see before you just what we're going to be covering today. And let's move forward. So let's talk about your very first steps. It looks like most of you are brand new users here, and that's what this is geared for. So for all new Rentec clients, you're going to be presented with the welcome screen I have displayed here for you when you first log in. And part of this is a link to a very useful and easy to understand resource we call the Quick Start Guide. You're going to see that on the right side of your screen. And I recommend you read it ASAP if you haven't. It's only a few pages, but it's very helpful. Just a quick note to all of you, the welcome screen image I'm sharing for you on the left side, I'm sharing is the PM version. So all of you pro clients that are here today, you should only be seeing 4 steps. So don't be concerned that you're only seeing 4 steps. There's just a few things that pro clients do not have to interact with in the software. So since we both have brand new accounts and also new users being added into existing Rentec accounts, I have some advice for both of you. The basics are make sure that you have your own user login if you're working in an account with other team members. If you don't have your own username, ask your admin for your account to do this for you. And they can always reach out to us if they need help with it. And another bit of advice, if you want to practice in your account to avoid making mistakes with real data, real tenants and properties, you can always create a practice property, practice tenant, owner, vendor, and you can play with these entities. After you're done practicing, you can just delete them. So no worries there. I recommend you don't, of course, create 20, 30 of them because you'll have to delete each one. But another tip that I'm going to show you later on is that we have a transition history log for you, and you can always look at it just to make sure you've deleted anything that you didn't want to stick in your account. Also, one last bit of advice, if the tutorial pop-up is not visible for you because it was turned off, you can turn it back on through the advanced setting in your program defaults. So if you're like, oh, I've not seen this, make sure you know you can turn that back on for you. So using the setup steps in order, this is something I really want to stress. It's really important to make sure your account is set up successfully. So if you ignore the setup steps or do them out of order, you see here the 1, 2, 3. If you do those out of order, you could end up creating more work for yourself as each step relies on the previous one for successful functionality. So I'm going to turn on a little pointer here so we can be pointing things out in the screen. So I mentioned these steps. Here we are having them in order. Also, something that I see some new clients do is maybe skipping over a step. They think, banking, for example. Some new clients tell me, I'm just not sure I'm ready to do that. And I want you to know, don't worry about clicking on banking. It's not going to automatically link to your bank account live. It's not going to require you to enter anything more than a nickname. So be sure to just add in your bank accounts just by nickname of what you're going to need to manage eventually. And it can be something as simple as you give a nickname of rent collection account or security deposits. You don't have to get too technical there if you want to keep that real simple. So wanted to give that advice. And then by adding them in from the start, what it does is it's going to ensure all your posted transactions are tied to an account ledger. Then down the road, reconciliation is going to go much smoother. And you can always come back later after your basic setup and you can activate electronic payments or learn how to print checks. So just make sure you add in, again, that bank account. Another step that we see our PM clients skip is the step number 4, managers. And a manager is someone who's in charge of a particular property. So I'd like to turn this over to Catherine so she can kind of explain in a little more detail what the manager setting is all about. So Catherine, I'll hand that over to you.
Thanks, Janelle. So I know there's a lot of confusion sometimes regarding the manager setup. And managers in Rentec here would be referring to somebody who might be in your company that manages a portfolio. So if you're a large property management company and you have like 5 property managers, this would be a good time to add them there. It will come in handy like if you need their names to show up on a statement or for a marketing page. And also if you pay them out their management fees. It's not necessarily for those managers, maybe at an apartment complex where they are just managing for you and you don't actually pay them management fees, maybe they're just on your payroll, then you would be adding them more as a sub-user, which is another part or step under the settings tab.
Yeah, thanks so much, Catherine. I appreciate that. And again, if you have questions, feel free to send them on over. Catherine's going to be handy here to answer all those questions for you. So just know that you can reach out to your client success team by phone, email, or even chat when you're logged into your program. There's a whole team waiting to help you. So you may not always be able to talk to Catherine, but the whole team is excellent. They're great helpers. Matter of fact, this is just a little toot the horn. In 2018, they won 3 gold medals for Customer Service Department of the Year with the American Business Awards, and there were 3,700 nominations. So I'm really proud of our team here. And please know your support team does not operate like a standard call center, meaning they are highly trained Rentec employees. And when you reach them, they will be able to skillfully help you. So there can be extra busy times, just like first of the month or Monday mornings. So keep in mind, if it's a busy time for you, it's a busy time for your support team. So if you do reach voicemail when you call during business hours, don't worry, but definitely leave a message because they will call you back, typically within a couple hours, but it's always in the same business day. So I'm going to turn this back over to Catherine so she can just kind of talk to you about where you can find help when you're logged into your account. So if you don't reach out to support, you can find your own help.
So here in the front, we're pointing at the front summary screen, which when you first log in, I call it like your running dashboard. So I'm going to kind of follow the arrows at the top. So where it says need help, you can always click on need help, and it'll give you some helpful instructions to our knowledge base. And you can also submit a question directly to our support team. If it happens to be on a weekend or when we're not available, of course, we'll answer it on the next business day that we're here. And then the system updates and the news tips on the right-hand side of that dashboard is the system updates is cool because it'll tell you all the latest features and any enhancements we've done to the software. And then, of course, our marketing team does an amazing job sharing blog articles that's in your industry. At the bottom of the screen, we have that knowledge base, which will be all your tips and tricks, is what I call it, giving you lots of helpful information as well as training videos. And then live support, it will be available so you can chat during our business hours as well, which is there at the bottom.
Thanks, Catherine. I appreciate that. So we've established that the setup steps, they can be found in the quick start guide, and how you're going to first enter your data. However, if you want to have electronic payments ready to use right away, I hear new clients say this all the time, like, I want to use this, or I need to use this immediately. I recommend that you jump on this setup step first thing. So usually I say hit the quick start guide and go through that. But if you have a lot of properties, or you just really need to be ready for rent collection, go ahead and do that step first. So if it's required by our payment processing center that it can take up to 10 days. So just do that in advance. And how you do it, I'm going to show it to you later, but you're just going to go into your settings tab, and you're going to see where it says, set up easy pay. Same thing for, access to credit reports. If you have applications rolling in right now, jump over and set up your tenant screening access to credit reports. And that's done under the reports tab. So after you've gone through these steps and you're wanting to have portals for tenants and owners to access their information, you're going to want to have the login page available. So you can do this by making sure your Rentec homepage is live, or by linking in the portal access to your privately hosted website. We'll go into this a little bit later. I just wanted to show you this priorities, and I'll make sure that I send this to you. So if you're like, which direction do I go? I'll make sure you have this in your inbox. So we've created some welcome letters that you can issue out to both your tenants and owners. And I definitely recommend you do this once you have your payment processing in place, because it gives them some good instruction. So we'll send you those as well. And if you don't have an email address for your tenants, that's something you want to get from them. And I suggest adding a note to your welcome letter. It's just a real easy way to do that. So again, priorities of how you want to execute getting things set up in Rentec and with your tenants and your owners. So after you have your tenants and owners with their welcome letter and you have their email address, that's when you're going to want to activate their portals. So they also have a unique username and password. So, and this is going to be able to be automatically emailed to them. And then, once you've gone through this priorities for setup, you're going to have your gold star, and you're going to have all the core tools in your account, and then you'll be able to move into some more advanced features. So just wanted to give you a little heads up on what we feel is a good flow for getting set up. So I want to dig into my account. I have a mock account, and we're going to just walk through that flow that I was talking about and give you an orientation for all of you brand new users. So let me move on over to a live account. Here we go. So again, this is my live account. No one in here is a true tenant, so don't worry, I'm not sharing anyone's information. What I'd like to do first is kind of talk about what you're seeing right now and what the pages are here in the tabs. So some of you may have already poked around and explored, but the summary page, like Catherine mentioned, it's the landing page. That's what we're looking at right now. It's where you land when you first log in, and you're going to notice, like she mentioned, the need help, the updates, the news and tips from marketing, the knowledge base. We've already got that. Also, some people don't notice this. This is a quick link that's going to take you to some really frequently used areas in the software. And once you click on these buttons here on the left side of your screen, you're going to see some drop-down notices. So if you're like me and you have a lot of different activity going on, these are collapsible. So just know you can click here. Another cool feature on the summary page is the universal filter. So if you need to look up information, looks like I might have looked for whiskers, you can just type in something. So if you're like, oh, I forget where, my tenant lives, and you can click on it and select your filters. So check that out. Also down here on the bottom right, you have another filter that you can have your notices on this page apply to. So just want to mention that piece for you. And let's talk about what these different tabs are for. So to me, it seems straightforward, but I've been working in Rentec for many years, so I want to make sure it feels clear to you as well. When you're in the Properties tab, you're going to be working on property-specific activity. So you're going to be paying bills in your property tab, doing maintenance requests, setting management fees for all you property managers. But when you're flipping over to the tenant tab, this is where you're handling tenant tasks. You're updating the lease, you're posting rent payments, recording charges that are tenant specific, managing security deposits. So I think you're probably getting the feel here, why you want to be in a specific tab. The accounts tab, of course, bank accounts, also management accounts if you're managing for landlords, and then pretty obvious, reports. Settings, this is the motherboard is what I call it. This is where you are going to customize your experience in Rentec. So while I normally flip through each of these tabs in order, I want to talk about when you're first creating your account, how important it is to go into your settings before you are adding in a lot of details, because there are some settings that are going to relate to that. So I'm going to click over on settings. Most important is your accounting defaults. So I'm going to click on accounting defaults for you and just mention a few of these here. You, of course, can come back later and read about it. And if you have questions, you see all of these blue question marks symbols. If you hover on them, it's going to offer you an explanation. So another good way to learn about the software is just to follow those icons and click on them. So before you add in your properties and your tenants, you're going to want to establish how many days early do you want to invoice your tenants for their rent charge. And what that means is, let's say rent is due on the first of the month. You want to charge your tenants in advance so that they can see that on their portal, or you can print a statement. Many of our clients say, hey, a couple days before the first. So they change this setting to be 2 or 10, however many days early. We have clients also, though, that say, I want the charge to appear on the day that it is due, and they set it at 0. So these universal settings here under accounting defaults are going to apply to all tenants you move in after you've set these. So if you move tenants in and then you change these settings, this will not apply to those tenants you've already moved in. You'll have to manually adjust them. So I just like to point that out, why it's important to do these accounting settings first. And down here towards the bottom, you're going to see some other options. We're not going to go into those today because it's a little more advanced, printing checks, handling owner disbursements and such, but definitely take a look at them. And then I also want to mention a couple other important settings are program defaults. So your program defaults, again, you can come back here at any point, but sometimes clients really want to dig into these before they start adding other data. And one thing I want to point out is the scroll bar. People do miss this because there are a lot of options. And down here, oops, at the very bottom, you're going to see the advanced settings. So if you click on that, it's going to take you to another list of options. Just again, another way to personalize your experience when you have first created your account. We have some default settings that most clients use. But again, personalize it when you can. So let's go into properties, because I know that's the most important thing after you've set your settings is you're going to be adding in a property. But before we add a property, I want to give you a little orientation here. Seems pretty straightforward, right? You've got your property, your tenants that are living in that property, and a balance column. I'm going to use this filter here just to isolate one. I think it makes it easier visually when you're working on a specific property to use that filter, and it helps you find them if you have a long list of properties. So here we have our property. You can see that there are some icons that are popping up. These are going to help you just quickly discern if you have a maintenance request that's open, or this is a for rent sign I'm poking at right now, that you have your marketing page activated. Maybe you have a little note that you want you and your team to be able to see. We call this the sticky note feature. You can just click on it and read it and delete it if you need to. You're done with it. So other things you see on the screen, I mentioned the balance column. You might notice right below the balance, there's another number, and that is for our property managers who might need to establish a reserve for a property. So maybe you want to definitely not spend a certain amount of money every month because you need it for expensive repairs. So you can set reserves, and then you can see that visibly. And then when I hover over it, it gives me an explanation, that I have a reserve of $1,000 set. So that's why we are in the red here. Also on this page, a few other things that you're going to see, this archive button. If you have a property that you used to manage or you used to own if you're a landlord, you can archive them and you'll still be able to access it. So that's what this section is all about. Again, you can see your listings that are down here, all your listings, but here's a particular listing. So many new clients say, well, I want to manage my tenant and I want to see it right here in the property page. Again, we want to go over to tenants to really manage the tenants. But if you're just wanting to get into the tenants ledger, you can click right on their name or hover over their name and this tooltip pops up. So just keep in mind that you're really managing property activity in the property tab, tenant in the tenant tab, but here is a little shortcut. So I'm going to click on this menu icon. This is one you're going to see in the different tabs. This, we call it the hamburger icon, but for us it's a menu icon, and you'll see all of the options as far as what you can do with a property. You can also just use a right-click function and be able to pop that up if you right-click on the property name. So now that you know where all of these settings go, I'm going to show you how you add a property. If you haven't already added a property, this is going to be helpful. If you have, I'm going to point out some features to pay attention to when you're adding a property. So I'm going to click on this button, add a property. And here again, nickname. This is just what you call it. It could be Purple House on the Corner, if that's how you remember your property. Most people give it an address or an apartment complex name. And this private note section, of course, this is just for you. Down here under the rental details, the multi-unit. I hear from new clients, some of them say, hey, I have a single family house. It's not really a multi-unit property, but I rent out each individual room. So college housing, sometimes people do that, or support housing for different individuals that might be in a care facility. So anytime you have a property that you rent out multiple spaces individually within it, you're going to select multi-unit and then just indicate how many spaces within that property you rent. And the default rent, this is ideally what you want to be receiving for that rent, for that property. If you place a tenant in, you can always adjust it. Down here as I scroll, you're going to see the ability to set a default income and an expense account. This will save you a step. Remember that bank that you added in, that bank account? This is going to save you a step every time you post an income or expense transaction if you say which bank account it should be associated with according to this property. So you'll have your drop-down menu if you've added in your bank accounts. Undeposited funds. We hear questions about this. What does this mean? Again, here's the hover tool to look that up. But I'm going to tell you that undeposited funds, think of it as your desk drawer. It's a afternoon, someone brings in a check. You want to record that the tenant has paid you, but you haven't gone to the bank. So you've recorded the payment, but it's undeposited. When you record your payments to undeposited funds, later you can create a bank deposit slip, and you'll have a record then of all those transactions that you then deposited. So many new clients want to use undeposited funds. We have some others, though, that indicate they simply want to have all payments record, maybe they're electronic payments, automatically to the associated bank account. So if you need more help with that, reach out to your client support team. They'll go into details. We also have options for you to be setting your management fees and the ability to add in some custom information. You do that under settings, but here you'll see I created some custom fields and I've added those in here. So let's get back to the property tab. And here in the property tab, I want to talk about placing a tenant. So once you've added your property, you're going to be able to place a tenant. I'm going to go back here to a property that I don't have a tenant in right now. I have one called Lakeside, and I am going to show you the steps for placing a tenant. I simply click the link here, place tenant, and I'm going to start a tenant from scratch. So let me add in, let's add Catherine in here. So I'm adding her in. She's moving into this property. You can see here my defaults that I've already added for my property rent and deposit. My accounting defaults, they're carrying forward. I want to talk about this piece over here, prorate first month. Always leave this box checked if your rent is due on the first of the month. It establishes the billing cycle on the first if this box is checked. If you uncheck it, though, it will allow you to have your rent due on a different day of the month based on this begin charges. So for you clients that have tenants that are already living in buildings and you're trying to migrate them in, you can list a historical move-in day, or maybe you're taking over management of a property that already has tenants. You can say, hey, this tenant moved in back in 2017. However, I want to start recording their charges and payments in Rentec starting February 1st. So this will allow me to have a record of when they originally moved in, but only start recording charges and payments as of February 1st. So let's place Wonder Woman in Lakeside here. We've added her in. When I come to this screen, there are a lot more options we can talk about when we move over to tenants, but I just wanted to show you how simple it was to place a tenant in a property. Likewise, if Wonder Woman had a roommate and I wanted to link that roommate, I can click this button right below her name in the property tab, and I can decide if I'm going to have them have separate terms, separate leases and ledgers, or if they're sharing the rental together. So I choose that option. I'm going to show you real quickly how you can post your first transaction to a property. And again, a property transaction it's going to be things like expenses, bills you're paying for your property. It's real simple. Just come over here to the right column, click on post expense, that red icon. And when you do that, you're going to be presented with a screen that shows you your balance, if you're a property manager, who owns the property, and you can record the details. You can categorize your expense. So you have your own income and expense categories. I'll show you where you can customize that. You can indicate who you've paid it to. You can even add someone on the fly. So if I wanted to pay, Superman, I can click add him, and he's now listed as my payees, and I can keep track of him later. So I just wanted to show you how easy it is to post an expense transaction. You're going to see a few other options here: recurring and depreciate. So if this is applicable, maybe you pay a bill on the first of the month every month to your landscaper and it's a flat amount, you can have this expense automatically post for you. So we've gone over the basics of properties. I want to move over to the Tenant tab here. And in the Tenant tab, we have a list of all your tenants. It looks very similar to the property side. All your tenants, the property they live in, the balance. I'm going to isolate one tenant here so we can make some good sense of it. Here in Stephen Colbert, again, he's a fake tenant. He has a roommate. You can see he has a co-renter, so they're sharing terms. You'll be able to click on the menu button to see all of your options for your tenants. And again, these tools you can dig into when we're not in the webinar, but I want to point out a few important ones that often gets brought up. If you are wanting to activate electronic payments, there's a setup step that has to be done first. One, you have to set up your account to have easy pay options, but you're able to, once your account is set up, you can head into the online payment section and manage that individual tenant. There are email options here that you can go into and group email all your tenants or an individual tenant. You'll be able to set reminders for yourself related to this tenant or notes. Let me show you this feature. This is a really great feature. If you go into add a new note, you'll see the option to just record an event. But if you click this button, enable reminders, this feeds over to your summary page. You also have email and text messaging options that you can send out this reminder to you or someone else. And again, that is tucked in the tenant menu right over here. So I've been asked, I did get asked by one of our clients, Carolyn out of Texas, for me to talk about how do you record a starting balance. And it's a very simple process. Let's go over to Wonder Woman here. So we just moved her in. Imagine if she has a previous balance. Maybe you're migrating her in and you want to record that previous balance. First, let's click on her ledger. You can see when I clicked on that amount, it opened her ledger, and we see her first charge was February 1st. Imagine she owed something carrying over from a previous period. We can simply click Post Expense. We can enter that amount. So let's imagine she had a previous late fee from January. And when I click Post Charge, it's going to record it. Let me mention this real quick here. This category, if it is a tenant charge, always leave it at 110 charge. Your chart of accounts that will show you all your different expense categories, these are relevant to only your properties. Tenants have a charge, leave it at 110 charge. Just a good tip there. So when I post this charge, you'll be able to see that now she had a previous balance of $75. Her February rent has been recorded and she has a $1,075 balance coming up for February. If you ever need to edit a transaction, this is the universal icon for editing. It also will help you if you need to delete a transaction. So we're going to delete the transaction we just posted. I'm going to click on Edit. Down here on the bottom right, I select Delete. Just lets you know it's going to be permanently deleted. Boom, it's gone. Now, if you're like me and the phone rings and 3 people come to your desk and you forget what you did, under your Settings tab, there's a transaction history log and you can find what you just did. If it was a mistake, you'll be able to see that. I want to mention one other item about tenants. Now that we're in the Tenant tab, I'm going to go back to what it originally looks like. Here's my Tenant tab. You want to manage security deposits. How you do that is you click on the balance, the top of the ledger, you see on deposit. When you click on that screen, you're going to be able to manage a security deposit, whether you're receiving it or you're returning it or charging against it. This is the screen that you'll handle that activity in. Another reminder about this need help, if you click on need help, you can type subjects like discounts. I have someone who asked me, how do I record a tenant discount? There's a help article. So head in here, click in the need help, and then you can read the how-to articles for that. Okay. Let's move on over to the accounts tab. So when we're in accounts, you are going to be able to see, if you are a PM client, both bank account options, and you're going to be able to see your accounts that you manage for, so your owner accounts. That's what's going to be displayed here. And if you need to add a bank account, just simply click the button here, add an account or add an owner. And I want to show you the undeposited funds option right up here. So remember when we were talking about undeposited funds in the property setup, here you can see I have a balance for undeposited funds. What this means is in my desk drawer, if I click on the balance, I have all of these payments that I've received. Let me show you real quickly. I want to make a deposit of all of these payments I took in today. I click the button and I say, you know, maybe I only want to take this one, or maybe I want to take all of them. I simply select the account, make sure it's going into, I have it selected for general operating, and then I'm able to print a deposit slip. And I have a summary at the bottom that shows me everything I collected. And if you need to print a copy of that, you certainly can. So I wanted to point out that undeposited funds feature. I also want to show you back here under the Accounts tab, the check printing option. You can print checks with your software. Once you've set a transaction to be printed, it's going to pop up here on your Accounts tab. So when you're ready to start printing checks, there is a knowledge base article that talks about it, but I wanted to point out where you find your checks that you need to print. So another option that you're going to see on this page is the menu. Like we saw for properties and tenants, there is a menu for your accounts tab, and you'll be able to see options that are more advanced, and you can read about these later: syncing with your bank, paying out all management fees, maybe you want to pay owners. These are tasks that are a little more advanced once you've added in the basics to your account, but I wanted to point out there is a menu option. And then as far as paying out all owners, there is another button over here. Again, this is an advanced feature. We're not going to go too deep into it today, but I wanted to click on it for you since you can see it visibly. When you click that button, our property managers, you'll be able to see all your owners and how much you owe them. And in one full sweep, you can send them their funds. So it's a great tool. We'll go into that in an advanced webinar. Thanks, Catherine, for answering all those questions. You're doing a great job. And thank you, all of you out there who are sending her questions. She's doing her best to keep up with all your questions. So since we've gone into the Accounts tab, I want to move on over to Reports. Reports are pretty self-explanatory, although I want to point out there are sub-tabs here. So if you're looking at financial reports, make sure you click on it. Filters on the left side, you can select reports to apply to all your properties or just an individual unit in a multiplex. You also have your date ranges. Look at this legend here and it will help you understand what these reports are going to display for you, if they're date bound or if they are static. So just keep that in mind. And again, the scroll bar. So we've got a lot of different reports here you can choose from. The renter reports are more facing towards tenant activity, and then screening reports. Let me click on that real quick. You'll be able to see all of your tenant screening that you've ordered. So if you haven't gotten set up for tenant screening, do that. Your screen would show click here to get set up, but mine is already set up. So all I would have to do is click order a report, enter information. Now, I am going to click back over to the Settings tab because, again, Settings is pretty important, and I want to talk about just a few more. We already talked about program defaults and accounting defaults. I would like to mention income and expense categories. We talked about posting expenses for your property or recording income for your tenants. Let's go into this section. Here you can see I have lots and lots of income and expense categories. This is more than your account comes with, but the idea is it's very simple to add a category. We can send you a list of recommended additional categories that most clients use. I find that many clients want to track separate from rental income, things like rental application fees, late fees. Likewise, they want to break out expenses into more detail, maybe not just repairs, but plumbing repairs, electrical repairs. So you can create your own categories, and then you'll be able to choose from these categories when you are recording your income or expense transactions. So again, under settings, you're able to set up your chart of accounts. Rental application. This is how you can customize your online rental application. I'm going to show you marketing in just a bit, but wanted to point that out. You're able to add in custom questions, instructions for attaching, say, photo ID. You're able to set an application fee if you have payment processing activated. So find that underneath your settings tab. And another feature you're going to want to pay attention to is manage users. I talked about everyone having their own username and password. Once you add in a user to the program, they can log in. You're going to want to pay attention to their permissions. If they're to have the same permissions as you, great, set them to have full permissions. Otherwise, you'll be able to customize what this individual can do in the account. So if you're the admin, you're going to customize your sub-user's permissions. And if you're a sub-user and you can't perform a task that you see me demonstrate, talk to your admin. There may be a reason why they have limited that. I mentioned transaction history. So you post a transaction and you forget and you need to look it up, or you are the admin and you need to know what someone else has done. If you head over to utilities in your settings, you're going to see transaction history. And when you click on that, you can see all your transactions. We're going to be adding in a few more filters here soon, and you'll be able to search even deeper. But right now, you can search by user or all users. You can select date ranges, but you can see here, remember when we had that charge for Wonder Woman that I voided? Here it is, and I can look and see who did that. And the details of that voided transaction. So this is a very useful tool for keeping your auditing in check if you need to see who's doing what. So I wanted to point that out as your transaction history. Another feature I want to briefly touch in on for all of our new clients, website. So your website tools that are included with your Rentec account are found under your settings tab. So when I click on this, I can begin customizing my Rentec website. We will even allow you to have your own website prefix name. This is our URL right here. You just can enter in whatever you would like your website to read, and then it will read that plus propertymanage.biz. If you have your own domain name, you can have this template pointed at it. You can read all about these customized instructions for your own website under Need Help. But for now, the Rentec website, if you click on this button here, you can begin designing your homepage. And your homepage is going to have, a picture of some real standard text that you can change to make it be more personal. I do recommend, though, if you are creative and you want to start formatting this website, be a little careful. If you're not familiar with how to adjust source code, then I would leave it the way this is and just change the words that you see. But if you feel creative and you're confident, you can start tweaking this as much as you'd like. We have a resource in the Need Help that talks about it. Once you have turned your web pages on. Let me take you over to a sample. Here's my sample. You'll be able to see the home page, the rentals page, the About Us. This is a 5-page website, and the login page, this is for your tenants and your owners. I'm going to show you how they log in just a moment. But for marketing your properties, you'll be able to activate it on the property side, and it feeds over to this Rentals tab. So let me get back into, I want to talk about activating marketing, because you may have a rental right now that you need to rent. Let's click on Properties. Let's imagine Lakeside. Lakeside, Wonder Woman's going to move out, and I need to market this property. So remember the menu. We click on Menu. We head on over to Marketing. And we can then enter information about this rental. So I have some information I want to put in my description, and possibly I want to list the features about this particular rental, and I can indicate lease terms. I can add as many pictures as I want. Over here, this is for a search filter. I'm going to show you how this works here. Publish online listing. This feeds to that website I talked about. Syndication. This feeds to a list of advertising partners that you are going to be able to advertise with for free. And there's a handful of them, but if you check this box, it's going to feed to them. Only do this if it's a legitimate rental, so I'm going to uncheck it right now. And here you can accept online applications. I'm going to save this. I'm going to show you how quickly I activated my marketing. So this is now on my Rentec website. To look at just this listing, we can click on the marketing icon. We can head on down here to see that. I'm going to click on this link that's specific, and here it is. There's my lakeside property, and if I click on more details, I can see the links to apply and everything that we just added in. If you have someone who is looking at your properties and you're on your rentals tab, they can also click this button called filter. And this is all taken from, as far as matching them up, it's taken from your property setup. So you may say, I allow animals on this property, but you notice how the others disappeared. Maybe this applicant wants a month-to-month rental. Maybe they are on rental assistance, and they can see, darn, it doesn't look like this property allows it, any properties they have. And they can save this search, and as soon as they save this search, it's going to notify you of it. You can look into the Need Help section more if you're interested in lead tracking and how the marketing page works, but I just wanted to demonstrate that for you here. So now that we've kind of just touched in on marketing, how you activated your marketing, how you activated your website, and I mentioned that tenants and owners can log in here, I want to show you quickly how you can get into a tenant portal, how you can get into an owner portal. Again, I mentioned there are some welcome letters that we've created that you can use. So here's a sample of the welcome to your tenant portal. Lets them know where they can go to the App Store and download the app for their mobile device. Likewise, owners that you're managing for, we have welcome letters that you can issue out. But let's get into a tenant portal and an owner portal. If I click over back on my account, I'm going to show you how you can actually look at what the portals look like. So you can go into tenants. I'm going to go into one that I know has some good activity. I'm going to edit my tenant. You're going to see the button down here that says login as tenant. So as long as I have this box checked, enable portal, and I set a password, and I email the tenant, they're going to be able to log in. But we're going to log in right now and see what this looks like. So let me share this screen to the tenant portal real quick. Here we are in my tenant portal. You can see in the tenant portal there are options for them to view their statement, and when they click on the statement, they're going to see the same thing you do back on your end. They see security deposits, they see charges and payments. They see an option for repairs. You can turn this off in your settings if you don't want them to, but they can submit a maintenance request to you by clicking the button. They can also give you permission to enter. They'll be able to upload pictures. If you have your electronic payments activated, they can click on the payment tab and set up recurring payments or one-time payments. And these can draft out of their bank account or they can be done by credit card. Keep in mind, credit card transactions carry a 2.75 fee. That's our rate with our payment processing vendor right now. And you can pass on a fee to your tenant automatically, so you're not out of pocket. It's all part of your settings. But again, on the tenant portal, you have options to share files, and this is all included, no extra charge to you. You can make this available to your tenants anytime that you want to, just by activating. Let me get back in here. Over on the tenant side, we're going to get back to the tenants, your screen, pardon me. So back here on the Your interface, again, to enable the portal, just check the box here. I'm going to show you quickly what an owner portal looks like for those of you who are managing for others. Back under the Accounts tab, if you edit an owner, so just click on the menu, select Edit, you'll see the option to turn on that owner portal and click Log in as owner. So we'll do that here. When I click on Log in as owner, you'll be able to see that owner portal. So here is the owner portal, and in the summary page, the owners are able to see work orders that you have decided to share. So you can share some work orders, share all of them, you decide. You'll be able to share with them tenant activity. On the Properties tab, if you are managing more than one property for an owner, they'll be displayed here. They can see maintenance requests. You'll be able to offer them a statement that they can search by date range. So maybe they just need to see this year. It's going to isolate transactions for you. Oh, I've had a busy year already. You'll be able to click on, or excuse me, they will be able to click on the File tab. This is where you can upload documents for them. You can do file attachments when you're posting transactions, and they can see that real time. They can also pull their own reports. There are 5 different reports they can pull independently, and this saves you babysitting, sending reports out every month. They are able to, pull it by individual property and date range, and this owner portal is just very valuable. Definitely take advantage of it. I'm going to get back into the main account just to show you a few last things. I know that Catherine has been, oops, I think I got rid of that whole page for you. Okay, so Catherine's been answering a lot of questions for you, and we've covered a lot of information. Just want to show you one more item because I know this is important. Payments are always important related to Easy Pay. If you've gone in and you've actually set up your Easy Pay account, let me show you one more step about this. We'll go to Accounts, we'll go to Add an Account, and when you're ready to apply for Easy Pay, click this button here. It's down at the bottom of your account page. But then after you've been enabled, under Settings, you'll be able to go to the Set Up Easy Pay section and start to make sure your settings are the way you want before you start using them. You can add in a custom category. Remember, we talked about that under Settings. You can link that here if you want to track transaction fees. You can show which bank account these are to go into. Definitely read the instructions related to Easy Pay to make sure you have them set, but I wanted to point out just a few items here. Being able to set your payment policy. Set your payment policy right away before you add tenants to the Easy Pay program, because these settings will apply to everyone you add after. If you add your tenants first and you don't have a payment policy established, it can cause you some grief. So I want to make sure that you do establish your settings right here. And then if you need to help a tenant, they're not going to do it through their portal, set up a payment, you can do this under the Tenant tab. You're going to find your tenant. Let's find a Wonder Woman. There she is. We're going to add her to Easy Pay. So again, tenant menu, head on down here to online payments, and you can then schedule the payment for your tenant. We won't go into these individual settings. I just wanted to give you a little visual there for it. All right, so we're kind of going over our time. I hope you're all still with me here and taking in a lot of good information. I'm going to head on back to another screen. So thank you so much for staying with me there. We have another poll. So like I mentioned, we've covered a lot. I'm really grateful that you've stayed with me, and it's going to, by answering these questions and also posing questions to Catherine, it's going to help our support team know how to best help you. So I'm going to send another questionnaire your way. Let me do that real quick. Oops. All right, about 80% of you have voted. Thank you for voting. I'm going to leave that poll open for just another moment. And I, again, just thank you so much. And Catherine, you've been amazing over there. You have been typing really fast and answering questions. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Janelle.
Yeah. So Catherine and I are just part of the Rentec Direct team that works hard to deliver a great program to you. And our team, from marketing to development, sales, and support, we're all located in Grants Pass, Oregon. So we're Pacific time. They're, just so you know, it's a fun group of people. They're talented, and I'm just very happy to spend a majority of my weekday hours with them. So from all of us, I want to thank you for choosing Rentec Direct as your management solution. And our educational webinars are posted on the Rentec Direct blog, and you can register up to 2 weeks in advance. A very popular topic is going to be covered in our next webinar that Catherine is going to be with us. So she's going to dig deep into your Rentec Direct accounting and reconciliation tools. So be sure to register for this webinar. It's going to be great, right, Catherine?
Sorry for the delay, but yes, you're right.
Excellent. And just a reminder, if you need help, don't hesitate to reach out to your support team. If you have any webinar specific questions, you can email me. You see my address there. And if your questions haven't been answered just because it's been a really busy webinar, we're going to be following up with you afterwards, and we'll make sure you have answers. And I also will send you a recording of this webinar and the supporting resources that we've covered, so that you won't have to dig for them. So thank you again for spending time with us today. I really appreciate it. Hope you have an awesome afternoon.